earlier speech, but later on in the evening I heard about the fact that the government had decided to defer the bill. So I went back to the drawing board and revised my speech. And the point I was making is that notwithstanding the deferment, there was already breach of the Constitution. Because under our Constitution, the power to initiate legislation is vested in the president. But he doesn't have a blank check. So what he has to do is to be able to take into account a number of factors. And one of them is that whenever you decide to initiate legislation, there must be evidence that the president is doing so in the interest and for the benefit of the people. Now, in this case, when you look at Bill 7, in no way does it benefit the people. In no way is it in the interest of the people. And for having undertaken that bill, initiated that bill, he had actually violated the Constitution because he was using his executive powers for purposes other than those intended by the Constitution. So when you have power, power is given for a particular purpose. So you cannot just decide to do whatever you want to do. And I think this is a great lesson. And what was quite exciting was to discover that these issues were actually considered by the court in its judgment, in which the court declared the process leading to the bill as not being in conformity with the Constitution. So in that respect, yes, my point was, even if the bill has been deferred, there was still breach of the Constitution in any case. That's what I meant, yes.
Right. In your speech, you went ahead to say that amending the Constitution is not a routine legislative task, but a solemn act that must be of the highest standard of necessity, legitimacy, and public participation.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, I said that in the speech, but I rarely read speeches at conferences, but this one, for some reason, I just decided to read it. Yeah, this takes us back to the issue where the president was, what the president was talking about, to say every president has called for the amendment of the Constitution. And my point is that even though other presidents have done the same thing, it doesn't mean that you have to follow in that pattern. First of all, there has to be a compelling reason why you need to amend the Constitution. Now, what you also forgot, I mean, it's always important when you are head of state to take some time to understand the history of the country, especially the constitutional history of the country that you're running. And unfortunately for the president, for the current president, all his predecessors had reason to initiate either a new constitution-making exercise or to amend it. But unfortunately for him, he had no cause. He has absolutely no reason whatsoever to initiate an amendment to the Constitution. He has no reason. And that is why they struggled so much to justify or to provide the rationale for Bill 7. I mean, the arguments were all over. One moment were investigation, the other moment is different, but none of the reasons are actually convincing.
Let's perhaps pick on the proportional representation in Parliament.
Yes.
Which has been one of the reasons that the UPND have given.
Yes, but also you have a problem with the proportional representation. If you go back to the original act, to the original bill that was presented before the National Assembly in December of 2015, that bill had proportional representation in it. Okay, that was a system, a system for proportional representation that was in it. But when it went to the floor of the House, both the UPND and PF, because remember, for you to pass an amendment to the Constitution, you needed 2/3 majority. Now, PF didn't have. So for the bill to pass, it required the concurrence of UPND. And that particular provision, a system that was embodied in that particular bill, was rejected by both parties. Now, the bill that was signed into law on 5th January 2016 was a bipartisan product. Both parties agreed upon. Now, what is the reason for wanting to change now? Okay? The same argument we argued against Bill 10 are the same arguments which are still valid today. Okay? But also, even the very idea of proportional representation, the details are lacking. Okay? It would have helped, for example, it's not enough to say there will be proportional representation in a manner that shall be prescribed. If the guys were sincere, they should have, it should have been accompanied by an act of a draft bill which was going to address that issue of proportional representation. You know, it's like, if you are a parent, it's like a child coming to ask you to say, Mom, I'm about to ask something. Can you just say yes? Okay? We don't. Okay? Because you don't know what the child is asking. Now, it's the same thing here, saying, oh, we want to introduce proportional representation and so forth. But the details were lacking. And that is why it became very difficult to justify this particular proposal.
The argument has been from the government, and I think we've heard the minister in charge, the Minister of Justice, also talk about this, saying that the Patriotic Front had amended the Constitution in 2026 before the election. So why is it wrong for the UPND government to do that now?
Yeah, you know, it's always important to know the history. Okay, you have to go back in history. The history is long, but whatever transpired in 2016 started in 91. Okay? If I may just explain. When we made a decision to make a transition from one-party rule to a multi-party system in 1991, there was a general understanding to say, obviously, and this is also something that is important for the president to be able to understand, you don't just wake up to say, I'm going to change the Constitution. There has to be compelling reasons. Yes, Kaunda amended the constitutions, introduced various constitutions several times. If I may go back slightly, you have the Independence Constitution. Why did we have an Independence Constitution? It's very clear. Because in 1964, until 24th October 1964, Zambia was a protectorate. Okay? Meaning that both your internal affairs and external affairs were being managed by the British government. Now, a decision was made to say it is time to allow Zambia to become an independent, Northern Rhodesia to become an independent republic of Zambia. Now, that is a radical development from being a protectorate, moving from being a protectorate to an independent republic. Okay? That situation dictated the need for a completely new constitution. So that's why we had that 1964. So there are reasons. Okay? You can't just wake up because my friends did it, then I should also do it. It doesn't work that way. Anyway, fast forward. In 1969, there was an amendment to the Constitution by amending the entrenched provision in the 1964 Constitution. Again, Kaunda and his administration argued to say, well, this particular independence constitution is not good for development. It is retarding our efforts to develop Northern Rhodesia, Zambia. Now, it is important for us to have the freedom to be able to amend the constitution instead of going to a referendum each time that we want to change even a comma in the constitution. Okay, they made a compelling reason. The issue went to a referendum, then they changed. Fast forward, 1972, Kaunda made a decision to say, a multi-party system of government which had existed from 1964 up to 1972, he argued that it was problematic. It was deterring development. So they needed a one-party state so that instead of competing for power between political parties, it was better that competition for power was within the party. And that is how they introduced one-party state in 1972. Now, that decision also, a constitution designed for a multi-party system, cannot work for a one-party state. So that required a radical a new constitution. Fast forward, the promises were never realized. The country was broke by 1991, and we said, hey, you promised us development and everything else. But what has transpired is a complete destruction of the country. So let's go back to a multi-party system of government, okay? So that too was now different, because you can't just polish up a one-party constitution and then make it work for a multi-party system. It doesn't work that way. So you had to re-engineer society. The country had to be re-engineered from one-party rule into a multi-party rule. That is into a to provide for a multi-party system. That's how we came up with the 1991 Constitution. But there was a problem. MMD, which was the main opposition party at the time, was not included in the process. They boycotted the process because they said the majority of the commissioners were UNIP appointed commissioners, and therefore this was already rigged from the beginning. So the two members that were appointed to sit on that particular, on the Mvunga Commission, boycotted, decided not to sit. Fast forward, the Constitution now is being debated in the Assembly. MMD now says, we don't agree with what is provided for, and for that reason, we're going to boycott the 1991 election. Okay? Government had to do something. So UNIP government conceded and said, okay, let's reach a compromise. So the 1991 was a compromise constitution to facilitate the election of 1991. So it wasn't a done deal. So there was an understanding from the very beginning that in the event that MMD wins the election, they are going to initiate a new constitution-making exercise. So the process was, the 1991 constitution was not really an acceptable constitution. After the election, indeed, MMD won. Now, for some reason, as usual, power is sweet. But the wasn't doing things. And I think even some, if you go back into history, some ministers even decided to resign from government, citing failure to initiate a constitution-making process. Then you have, the history is very important for the benefit of the president. Right. And who said we hate him or we despise him? We don't. If we despise him, we wouldn't have voted for him anyway with 57% of the vote. So we don't despise him, okay? But we simply disagree with him with what he's doing. Let's fast forward. In 1993, Chiluba appointed the Monakatwe Constitution Commission. The understanding was very clear. We are working on a new constitution. But what happened? Chiluba abrogated that exercise and changed his mind to say, no, we don't need a new constitution. We just want an amendment. You can understand. So the process was aborted. The understanding from 1991 was to say we need a new constitution. But Chiluba changed his mind and said, no, just an amendment is enough. So that amendment was effected. I think we all know that amendment resulted into Kaunda being barred. Okay? And also, for the benefit of those who may not know, the 50+1 requirement was in the 1991 Constitution, and in the amendment of 1996, it was changed. There were a few other changes. So that Constitution stayed in place. When President Mwanawasa came into office, he too said, hey, wait a minute, we haven't fulfilled the 1991 promise. We don't have a new constitution. Chiluba aborted the exercise. That is how Mwanawasa had reason to do that, because this was still unfinished business. Then Mwanawasa appointed the Mungomba Constitution Commission, and they came up with a draft. That draft went dragged on. It went to the National Constitutional Conference, because based on the Mungomba Commission recommendation, the idea was that the draft was to go to the Constitutional Conference. That was a debate whether Constituent Assembly, or to a Constituent Assembly or Constitutional Conference. It dragged on. Unfortunately, Mwanawasa died. Then Arabi took over. But Arabi did not see that process to the end. So that particular process collapsed. When President Sata came into office, he picked up the ball to say, we haven't finished the 1991 business. Okay? So he decided, I don't need a commission, I just need to appoint a technical committee. And that technical committee did a thorough job. Okay? That is how, after this was now 2012 when it was appointed. By 2015, I think they had finished their work. And unfortunately, SATA died. That process was not completed under SATA. In the 2016 election, the Constitution was an election issue. I remember the current president promising to say, if you elect me, I'm going to complete this particular exercise. Then President Lungu was in the office. He said, he's promising you. Me, I'm going to do it because I'm the president. That is how they decided, and genuinely so, to say, and in any case, don't forget, there was also an understanding that the election of 2016 was going to be conducted in a manner which required the winning presidential candidate to secure more than 50% plus one of the votes. Now the question was, how can we manage this process? Okay? Now, the only option, there were two options. If you had to do it before 2016, it meant you conducting a referendum. Now, a referendum is just another election altogether. So meaning that you're going to have a referendum for the Constitution and then have the actual election. Now, these were going to be very costly exercises. Now, both UPND and PF agreed that the Constitution will be done in two phases. One phase, which involved non-payment, was going to be 2020, and the Bill of Rights were going to be submitted to a referendum. Now, the referendum was going to be held at the same time as the general election for purposes of containing cost. That was done. That is why you see that the Constitution is amended in 2016. The bill passes in December, and President Lungu gives assent to that particular bill on the 5th of January 2016. So that one phase was done. That phase was completed between PF and UPND. What they didn't agree on never went through. For example, that Constitution provided that ministers will be appointed from outside Parliament. Both parties rejected that, and that includes the issue of proportional representation that you're talking about. That was rejected. There were a number of other provisions that if the parties are not agreed, then that particular provision falls away. That went through. 5th January, we have the Constitution amended. Then there was a bill that was not subjected to a referendum. UPND campaigned against the referendum. And I remember vividly appearing with the current speaker at one of the colleges. I was for the referendum and she was against the referendum. Okay? The outcome of that referendum was that the referendum question did not get the requisite votes. Therefore, it collapsed. Now, that process, which started in 1991, concluded in 2016. We finished. There is absolutely no reason to continue with the amendments of the Constitution. That chapter is closed. What we should be looking at now is how do we actualize the various provisions of the Constitution. Right. That is why we are saying, no, Mr. President, we don't hate you. You just don't have reason, convincing reason as to why you should amend this Constitution. Because the Constitution as amended is a bipartisan product. Okay, it could not have passed without the support of UPND in 2015. Okay? So it's not about despising somebody. We don't. Like I have said, if we didn't like him, we wouldn't have voted for him anyway. We voted for him. But what we have here is that we have disagreed with what he's trying to do.
Right.
We disagreed with President, and the same argument we advanced against Bill 10. He said, why do you want to change this thing? Yes, no constitution is perfect, but what we have is a near perfect document, right? We opposed it, we opposed Bill 10, and there is no reason to support Bill 7, okay? Because that exercise is done. We completed it in 2016. Now, when you go to a referendum, you have to respect the outcome of the referendum. You have to respect it. So Zambian people said, we don't want to amend the Bill of Rights. That is why they didn't vote for it. Okay? We have to accept that what we are now supposed to do is to accept the Constitution as it is. First of all, I know people talk about Constitution of 2016. No, we don't have a Constitution of 2016. What we have is a Constitution of 1991, which we amended in 1996 and 2016. That's the Constitution we have. Okay? So it's important for people to have the historical context of this exercise.
Right. Before we cross over to Ambassador Mamba, the President is on record and in Parliament as well, where he speaks about lacunas in the Constitution. Don't you think this is what has prompted his government to move forward with wanting to amend the Constitution?
You know, started the history, the stories of lacunas. Anyway, as I've said before, there is no way lacunas is not a plural word, is lacunae. This was started by PF. These same arguments were used by PF to support the introduction of Bill 10, to say there is a problem with, there are certain things missing. You know, and I've argued with people, say, do you know what a lacuna is? Lacuna is, say, for example, something is missing. Take a book, for example. If a book jumps from page 10 to page 15, there are pages missing. Okay, so it means that you have, if it is 10, it jumps to 15. It means that you are missing page 11, 12, 13, and 14. Now, what is missing in that Constitution? All the articles are clearly outlined. Now, if you don't like something, you can't describe it as a lacuna. Okay, or if you want something that you wish was there, the fact that it is not there, it does not amount to a lacuna. By the way, you cannot question the legitimacy of the Constitution. You have to take the Constitution as it stands. Now, if I ask you to say, look at the Constitution, you won't like everything. I won't like everything. But the point is, what I like or what you like is inconsequential. It's the law. We are all bound by that. Yes, a Constitution, like any document drafted by man, is imperfect. That is why we have the Constitutional Court. Okay? We have a Constitutional Court because the Constitution itself says, well, there will always be controversies in terms of interpretation and so forth. Right? So it has its own internal mechanism for resolving its own internal challenges. And that mechanism is the Constitutional Court. So if you believe there is a problem, you go to the Constitutional Court. And the Constitutional Court will tell you, like we have seen with the judgment, with this, by the way, if this judgment that came out, I can confess, I've been a critic of the Constitutional Court, but I like to say, when something good has been done, we need to acknowledge. This is perhaps the best judgment ever written or produced by the Constitutional Court. This judgment strengthens the standing of our Constitution. Okay? So it is something that I think Zambians should take time to read it. And if only they can read from page 15 to 18 just to understand the dynamics and what the court said, maybe as we go along, we'll be able to discuss that. But the point is this. We have a Constitutional Court. That was a debate. Is it right for Minister Kasune to start to issue that ministerial statement before people have seen the bill? Right? That was the issue. And The other parties, first of all, I need to commend the lawyers that went to court. Okay, because I'd given up myself, given my experience with Bill 10, I'd given up, really. But I think the lawyers were quite creative in the sense that, and that's the way the law is supposed to work, because you don't go back and do something that your friend has already done. But they took the initiative. They did into it. In the case of Bill 10, we waited for the bill. Then we went to court and challenged. And the court said, no, we can't interfere. Now, in this case, tactfully, the lawyers now went before the bill could be presented before the House. Okay? And that is the difference between the two. And the court said, yes, there is this process. Okay? There's something wrong with the way it has been initiated. Okay? And that's why the court said, no, you don't have the right to initiate this process. Okay? So it's a beautiful judgment in that it consolidates our Constitution and supports our democracy. It is something to celebrate. And by the way, it's also important to note, those that are listening, this is the first time in 60 years that the court has stopped an effort to amend the Constitution. We failed in 1972, 73. We failed in 1996. Okay? And in this would be 2019, Bill 10. We failed, the court refused to step up, but Parliament saved the day. So this particular judgment, it is the first time in the history of this country that an attempt to amend the Constitution has been stopped by the court, and that is the way our system is supposed to operate.
Right. To those that are just tuning in this evening, you're welcome to a special edition of Millennium Tonight on Millennium TV. Also, we're streaming live on Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba's Facebook page as well. We're also streaming live on Millennium TV Zambia on Facebook and on Channel 95 on Topstar. As I said earlier, our phone line will be opening so that you can come through our dear viewer and just be part of the conversation. We move on and cross over to Ambassador, and just so that maybe he can just ask a few questions to State Counsel John Sangwa.
I hope you can hear me clearly. You brought your address on Friday, the 25th of June, 2025, to the Law Association of Zambia and Chapter 1 Foundation organized conference. I think is being cited as landmark, like they are referring to the Constitutional Court ruling that it was landmark. I think you set out priorities that the country must take, because you clearly set out that the nation was in crisis. The unity, fabric of unity was tearing at the seams of disunity, regionalism and tribalism. You cited issues like cost of living crisis, poverty, unemployment, rising debt, and that we are now the 6th poorest country in the world. And you felt that there was no need whatsoever to go to an issue of the Constitution. My second question, and probably asking you, is that they've always, like you fought Bill 10, Bill 7 was using sweeteners, like the issue of MPs, participating at the decentralization level for CDF, like the participation of women, youths, and persons with disability. Do you think these are enough justification for us to hold these constitutional amendments? And my rider is the judgment by the Constitutional Court is very damning. Clearly says the president has breached the Constitution. If a president breaches the Constitution in the manner President Hakainde Hichilema, because they've stated that he breached both sovereign and legislative authority of the people, and he breached Article 1, 2, 5, 7, 8, 9, 61, 90, and 92. Probably just answer those three for me.
Okay. The starting point is this. Normally, when there is a violation of the Constitution, you can't take the president to jail for that, but the only remedy that is there is a possible impeachment. But impeachment is dependent upon the numbers that you have in the National Assembly. And I heard a day or so ago people talking about the fact that they're going to push a motion for the impeachment. I mean, that is not something that is possible because you need 2/3 majority for to even start the process, which whoever the opposition combined, even if you put the independents, they don't have that kind of those numbers, and it's very unlikely that the president's members of parliament belonging to the president's party would even support that. So it's basically something that is a non-starter. But there is another penalty, which is what I believe should be the case. When you violate the Constitution, which is what I've argued, and there is an election coming like next year, in my view, you have broken people's trust. Therefore, you don't deserve to be re-elected. That's what I deserve. That's the penalty you get. And for example, I'll tell you. I voted for the president in the last election. And come 2026, it's not getting my vote. It's not getting my vote because of what has transpired. He's breached that trust. And for the member of parliament, I'm not also voting for the member of parliament that I voted for in 2021. Because he too has breached the trust in the sense that he did not distance himself from Bill 10. So those are the penalties that we have as a people. You may not impeach because that is the job of the National Assembly, but we have the vote. Okay, and that is why in the speech which I read, I was saying that let the election be some kind of a tribunal on Bill 7, and that is one situation that you could. That is one option that is open, and I think for me the public trust has been damaged, and for that reason I don't believe that a person or a president that has breached, because remember, a president takes oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. Okay. Now, when you fail to uphold and defend the Constitution, you have violated that trust. And once you violate that trust, you have forfeited the right to ask me for my vote. That is one way. That is one way I can say in relation to the consequences for breaches of the Constitution. I do hope people will be able to hear me correctly. The point is this. We do not need any form of a constitutional exercise. Be it an amendment, a new constitution. Or be it, we don't need that exercise to be undertaken. Because we have a good constitution. What we need to do is to allow people to study and take every effort necessary to understand what it says. The reason why I'm saying we don't need this judgment is proof of that. Okay? Because in arriving, I mean, there are two judgments. There is one for the minority, there's a minority judgment and there is a majority judgment. Now, I applaud the majority judgment because in relation to Bill 10, they limited themselves exclusively to the interpretation of Article 79. But obviously, like everybody else, we learn. So the Constitutional Court has now come up with a far better interpretation. They didn't just look at the period, because Article 79, they have clearly stated that Article 79 kicks in after consultation. Now, the minority judges are saying, no, whatever happens before presentation of the bill is inconsequential. What is important is the process of consultation, according to the majority judgment, starts once the bill is gazetted within the 30-day period. Now, the majority judges are saying, no, it doesn't. You actually start long before. Before you even come up with the bill, you must consult the people. You must consult. Now, there are some very, very interesting pronouncements, if I can just refer to them. What the Constitutional Court is basically saying, it is affirming the ideals that are contained in this Constitution. You do not need to change it, okay? And this is something that I've been singing about for the last 35 years. And what they have affirmed in this judgment, it is outstanding. First of all, for those that haven't read it, just go to paragraph 33, okay? Where they are saying the people are the owners of the decision to do away with a particular provision and to replace it with another provision. So what they are basically saying is that, this is very, very good concept for the people to understand. If I may just deal with it briefly. There is always this notion that politicians are our bosses. They are not. They are our servants, including the president. He is a servant of the people. He is not the boss. The people are the bosses. I think it is important for Zambians to understand. Do not fear your president. You can respect him, but you don't fear him. Do not fear your MPs. Do not fear your councillors. Do not fear your judges. They are your servants. They work for you. You don't work for them. And I think this is the outcome of this particular constitution, of this particular judgment. They emphasize the fact that ultimately the owners of the power of this country is the people. Now, that's very important to understand. Okay, this particular concept has been lost to people, whereby we begin to worship the president, we begin to worship ministers, and so forth. No, we're not supposed to do that. These are our servants. We are the bosses. And this is what this particular judgment affirms. Now, one of the provisions, that is why this particular constitution is so good, is that it reminds Parliament, it reminds the president to say the power which you have has come from the people. You must exercise it for the benefit and for the well-being of the people. Now, that is something that is clearly evident from the judgment. And it is important for us to understand that. Now, no constitution before the 2016 amendment has ever had those safeguards. Previous constitutions simply gave power to the courts, gave power to Parliament, gave powers to the president, without any safeguards. Now, this constitution has safeguards to say, court, we are giving you the powers. The powers you exercise are not yours, they are from the people. And you must use them in a manner that promotes accountability.
Right.
Now, in the case of the legislature, the constitution says, you have the powers, but these powers are not yours. You have to exercise them in a manner that defends, not abrogates the constitution. And the same to the president. So, to answer the question, we do not need another exercise. We don't. I'm appealing to civil society. I'm appealing to the Law Association of Zambia. We do not need another exercise. This is a wonderful constitution. We need to study it. In fact, our focus should be to make sure that all the other institutions that are created by this constitution are actually created. Right. The case in point is that, first, we must make sure that we pass a law, that law to do with political parties, which PF did not and UPND has not. That is a priority because that law will enable us to control funding of political parties. Okay? None of these guys are interested in passing that particular statute. Secondly, there are other institutions that are supposed to be created that have already been created by the Constitution, but have not been actualized yet. For example, there's supposed to be in the Constitution the power to alienate land, for instance, lies in the Land Commission, not in the Commission of Land. But for some reason, PF did not and UPND has not actuated the Land Commission. Okay? So we need to look at, don't change it. You know, it's like, I like giving this example. It's like they give you a car which according to the specification, it needs 10 wheels for it to operate perfectly. You only have 6 wheels. How well do you think this car will drive? Very unlikely. It will not perform very well. Now, for you to determine whether it is a good car or bad car, put all the wheels. If they say 10 wheels, put 10 wheels. Then you can take it on the road to make an assessment. Now, right now, because some institutions have not yet been created, we are not in a position to pass a judgment as to whether we need to amend this constitution or not. These are the same arguments we advanced against Bill 10, and these are the same arguments that we advanced against Bill 7. Now, having said that, even if we wanted to, the question is amending the constitution a priority? The answer is, it is not. It is not. Okay? Now, can somebody convince anyone that this constitution will put food on the table? I don't know whether we Zambians really understand how the depth of the economic challenges that we face as a country. This country is in trouble. This country, forget about whatever politicians are telling you. You know, people are celebrating the movement of the kwacha, or it has gained, it is the best performing currency, and all that doesn't mean anything. Other people are celebrating, oh, the reserves have grown from whatever number to 4.5 billion, the highest in 20 years. It doesn't mean anything to an average person. We are in trouble as a country. Okay? First of all, to answer the question from Ambassador Mwamba, what has happened is we are poorer today than we were in 1964. Okay? People are throwing around all these figures and so forth. What do they mean? They mean nothing. Okay? We are poorer. So at independence, this country was richer than it is today. We are worse off. I mean, in terms of numbers, for example, right? And people are talking about this thing to say, oh, we will double our GDP and so forth. They don't explain how they are going to double the GDP. Let me just give you an example, and this is what I was talking about in my speech. In 60 years, we have grown our GDP 1.5 times. At independence, our GDP was close to $1 billion. Now, if you factor in inflation on the dollar, today, $1 billion in 1964 is equivalent to $10 billion today. Today's, our current GDP for last year, was 2024, was 25 billion. Okay? Now, what is the population? In 60 years, whilst your economy has grown by 1.5 times, your population has grown nearly 7 times. Can somebody tell me what arithmetic are you going to use to address these problems? This is a disaster we are looking at. These are the issues we should be talking about, not amending the Constitution.
Right.
Our GDP, if you take GDP 1964, it was $235 in 1964. Your $235 in 64 is equivalent to $2,350 today. Now, what is our actual GDP today? Our actual GDP is 1,300. That is how bad the economy is. Those are the issues that we should be talking about. The population has gone through the roof. You know, it's like you have a home. What happens? Your family is growing, but your income is not increasing. What happens? That's poverty. Okay? That is exactly where we are. The challenge that we face is, how can we grow? The challenge that we face as Zambia is, how do we grow our economy and control the population? Because the population growth that we have is one of the highest in the world.
Our population is growing at 3.5% per annum. It's unsustainable. Whereas our economy is growing at 5 to 6%. That is a recipe for poverty. Now, for me, Bill 7, Bill 10, these are distractions. So that we talk about the Constitution, okay, we forget the real economic issues that we should be talking about.
Counsel, I'm sorry to cut you short. Let me just take you a little bit back to when you were talking about the consequences of breaching the Constitution.
Yes.
And you were saying that in this case, the president has breached the Constitution and he's broken the trust of the people of Zambia, and he doesn't need to be re-elected in 2026. Are you trying to decampaign the president right now?
I'm just sharing my position.
Don't you think that is in the power of the people of Zambia?
Of course. It's, yeah, I've just told you, it's not getting my vote. And the MP is not getting my vote. Okay? That is something very precious. For me, he's betrayed me. And I don't know, maybe other people look at it, they won't see anything wrong in that. That's entirely up to them. But that is my position. I'm not voting for him in 2026. Okay, so that is entirely also up to the people themselves. Each Zambian, for example, you go in a booth, you make your own decision. Okay, this is the something very precious that we have, and also it is important for politicians to know that bad decisions have consequences. Okay, you cannot betray people's trust and still go on as though nothing has happened. Okay. I'm just stating my position, okay, because I did not vote. I gave the president my vote, not to come and change the Constitution. No, I gave him my vote so that he can come and address the economic and social challenges that we are facing, not the Constitution, because there is nothing wrong with the Constitution, okay? So for me, he's betrayed my trust. Other Zambians are perfect at liberty to make their own judgment.
There are also people that are calling for, the president to resign on moral grounds after breaching the Constitution. I mean, is that one of the consequences as well? Should he resign because he's breached the Constitution?
I've read that. That is now entirely up to him. Okay, you can't control that. If he decides to, well and good. But if he doesn't, I have the vote come next year, which I have the right to exercise. Okay? So we must understand that, guys, governance is trust. Okay? When 57% of the people give you that trust, it's not a right. You don't have a right to be president. Nobody has the right. You don't have a right to be an MP. You don't have a right to be a councillor. You don't have a right to be a mayor. You don't have a right to be president. These are privileges. And privileges, you have to make sure that you exercise them in the manner that is intended. Okay? That is simply my view. Okay? Other people are perfectly at liberty to do that. That is how a democratic system works. Okay? I use my vote to put you in the office because it's a contractual arrangement. I'll give you my vote. When you go in, this is what I expect you to do. Now you go in, you start doing something completely different. So why should I give you my vote again? Okay, it defies logic. So the people have to understand, politicians need to understand that they have a sacred duty. They are servants of the people. They are not masters of the people. Okay? Coming back to the issue we're talking about, this country has problems. We should be talking about the economy. In fact, it looks like we are producing more constitutions than anything else. Okay, we shouldn't. We won't eat constitutions. Let's focus on the economic problems that this country is facing. Okay, that is what should be our ability, our responsibility. The most important other thing that we need to note is that, first of all, we have proven that the responsibility to develop this country lies with each and every one of us as Zambians. It's not the responsibility of one person. Okay, it is a shared responsibility. Now, we Zambians, we need to decide, do we want to stay in poverty or do we want to get out of poverty? Now, if we decide to stay in poverty, that too is our choice. Okay? It's like you decide to drink yourself to death. That's entirely up to you, right? Nobody can stop you. Now, similarly, you can say, no, I've drunk too much, let me change my lifestyle. That is equally up to you. Now, Zambians need also to make that collective decision. Do we need to continue with the state of poverty we are in? Okay? If we do, then that's fine. Or if we agree to say, well, we have no interest in developing this country, let's all start stealing, that too becomes our choice. But we can also make a choice to say, we deserve better. God has blessed us with so many things, and we have to get out of poverty. We have to desire to get out of poverty. Then that means us making a collective decision, because it won't happen when other people are working hard to try and to lift the conditions in the country. Others are stealing. Okay, it won't work. We have to find a way to balance, first of all. We have to control our population. Okay, that is key, one main area, not whereby we are being told to say, imita ufole. I mean, that's crazy. Okay, the population is already unmanageable. It has outstripped the resources that we have. So we need to find a formula which will enable us control the population and boost the economy. First of all, just to go back, we need to go back to the pre-independence levels. Okay? To sustain that, our economy should be growing at not less than 7 to 9% per annum. Just to go back to the independence position before we can talk about anything. Okay? Just to give you another point, the average GDP per capita within SADC area is $4,500. Where are we? 1,300. That's poverty. Those are the issues we should be talking about. Okay? Not the Constitution. The Constitution is so, we won't cook the Constitution. We won't eat the Constitution. Let's address the economy.
Right.
Okay, we need to agree to say, okay, fine, and not whereby people just throw around numbers, oh, the country is growing, the economy is doing well. In relation to what? We need to make a commitment as a people to say, okay, our GDP in 1964 was 2,350, but today it is 1,300. How do we get back to 2,350? That's what we should be talking about. Most importantly, Ambassador brought out about other things, otherwise. The country is divided. This country is divided. Those are the issues we should be talking about, not the Constitution. Okay? I have never seen, I mean, I'm sure Ambassador Mambo would know this. I have never known tribalism in my life. Never. And I'm even finding it a problem to function in this environment. Okay? Maybe tribalism used to be discussed in people whispering about it. Now it is something that is being discussed in the mainstream. Now, this country cannot survive. This country is stronger when we are united.
Right.
Okay? We need to find a way to come together. What separates us is nothing compared to what unites us. Every one of us, we want the same thing. Okay? But now, not when we begin to practice politics of identity. That is a disaster for this country. Our priority as a country should be, one, focus on the economy. Feed the people. Okay? The population, this is a disaster. Nobody's talking about what the population is going to be, say, in the next 5 years. Even if you double the economy today, you double the economy in 5 years, the population won't remain static. So whatever growth you're going to register will be wiped out by your population. Your GDP per capita won't improve. Okay? So our focus should be on two primary things: addressing the economy and focusing on national unity. Those are the key issues. Forget the Constitution. We've already settled the Constitution. Let it breathe. Let's test that particular Constitution. And it has proven, given this judgment, to say it's not a bad document.
Right. Let's bring Ambassador Mwamba in as well.
Council. The president, in the withdrawal of his judgment, used the term defer, that the constitutional making process will be deferred pending countrywide consultations. And I think something like that came up in Parliament, where the Speaker presented like Bill 7 still has life. I was very concerned. What is the status of Bill 7, isn't it a nullity? Hasn't the Constitutional Court ruled finally that we should set it away and a fresh process begins? I thought that the Constitutional Court has set, in fact, a new way of or maybe an emphasized way of making a constitutional process. Just answer to these issues. Bill 7 is still alive because the president used the word defer, and Parliament.
Those are acts of lawlessness. Okay, you see, when we go to court, obviously one party will come smiling and another party will come out crying. Now, the outcome of this exercise is this. Bill 7 is dead. In fact, you can't even call it a bill. It's not a bill. You can't even find a term for it based on the decision of the Constitutional Court. Okay? So that is an instrument without any legal significance whatsoever based on the pronouncements of the Constitutional Court. So whatever is going to happen, even if they go ahead and pass it, it means nothing. It has absolutely no legal standing. Okay? Now, these are the challenges that we face. And the issue is very simple. What is required is for the National Assembly to be able to accept that and be able to say, okay, we accept this. Now, the other important thing to note is the fact that the bill is dead. It's non-existent. Now, we need to read the judgment very carefully. It doesn't mean that you can defer it. You can't. Whatever process, wherever it started, which be from the beginning to Bill 7 to whatever is Bill 7, that is completely nothing. That has been nullified. It is like what we say, null and void. It is of no effect. It's like zero. There is no Bill 7. That is the implication of the decision of the Constitutional Court. Now, what is the other implication of the Constitutional Court? What the court is basically saying, if you have to initiate an amendment to the Constitution, the ultimate authority lies with the people. So there are two ways in which you can now initiate an amendment to the Constitution, if you want to. One, the people must ask for it. Okay? The people must ask for it. And the role of those in government is to facilitate that process. However, if those in government want, for some reason they discover that some provision of the Constitution is problematic and they need to change it, they have to go to the people. Okay? Get the people's approval, and only then will the process set in motion. Okay? So it's not just a question of stopping whatever bills, picking up Bill 7 and dusting it up and then continuing. No, that's not what it means. That process is dead. It's dead. If there has to be any amendment of the Constitution, which I'm not recommending, and I'm urging everybody to say, forget about the Constitution. Let's implement, forget about amending the Constitution. There is no case that can be made for the amendment of the Constitution. None whatsoever. What we should be able to do, let's focus on national unity and focus on building the economy. Those are our priorities. Okay? So that is my take on what Ambassador said.
Right. Before we open our phone line, Council, the Law Association of Zambia, in its statement, has also indicated that government must seriously reconsider any plans to embark on the process of amending the Constitution until after the 2026 general election. From your submissions, do you think there is any need to amend the Constitution even beyond 2026?
No, there isn't. You know, we need to have priorities as a country. Okay? Now, if you can tell me something, first of all, if you ask an average Zambian, what is top on his mind? Is it the Constitution? Is it? Even you, what is top on your mind? It's survival. It's not the Constitution. Unless you can tell me that amending the Constitution will put food on my table, I'll be the first one to champion that. Okay? But there is no such a basis to make such a pronouncement. So there is absolutely no reason to amend the Constitution either before or after the election. None whatsoever. There are these people that have argued to say, well, you know, we needed to increase the constituencies so that we can bring development. Again, that's another lie. Okay? MPs are not, it is not the responsibility of MPs to develop their constituencies. It's not. It's not in the law. And anybody that says that is dangerous, it means it doesn't even understand this, our system of government. The responsibility to develop districts at the local level, it is that of the local authorities, district councils, municipal councils. Those are the people it is that have the mandate of developing their respective areas, not MPs. And that is why we took out the MPs away from the local authorities and just kept them separately to the National Assembly to operate at the national level and leave the local government independent of control of the central government. So the role of the central government is simply to ensure that local authorities are adequately funded. So there is really no case to be made to amend the Constitution. But even then, I've argued that if you look at it right now, what we should be looking at is to say, how is our system, parliamentary system, working? Okay? First of all, I mean, I pointed out at the last, when I was at the conference, to say, listen, the limitation which people are talking about is about representation. Okay? You have an MP who is going to speak on behalf of the people in his constituency. It has nothing to do with development. Now, there is already an existing problem in the current arrangement. Okay, I gave an example of Kanyama. Kanyama has 500,000 people, one MP. Then you have another constituency, I think Feira, which has 35,000 people. It's a constituency. That's an abnormality. You shouldn't have that. Okay? Then you have, I think, another constituency in Northwestern Province, which has 28,000 people. How do you have one MP for 28,000 people and then another MP representing 500,000 people? These are the problems. And then you also have, for example, Lusaka, for example. Lusaka is the most populous province. It has 3 million people. Now, Lusaka only has 12 constituencies. That's abnormal. So Lusaka, ordinarily, it should have well over 20 constituencies in Lusaka alone. So before you start changing the system, look at the system. Is it working okay? Don't just rush into wanting to change. These are the challenges that we face.
All right. Allow us to open our phone line this evening, and then we'll also cross over to Ambassador Mamba for further questioning. The number that you'll be calling us on this evening is 0770813728. We're live on Millennium TV Zambia and Facebook, on Topstar, it's on channel 95, and also streaming live on Ambassador Emmanuel Mamba's Facebook page to tune in and be part of the conversation. This evening we feature State Counsel John Sangwa as we look at Bill 7 and the deferring of Bill 7. Do come through on the number that is on your screen. It is 0770813728. As we wait to pick a few calls, we'll just cross over to Ambassador.
A caller on this number that Lovisa has spelled out. Caller, please identify yourself and make your contributions or question to State Counsel John Sangwa.
TV for organizing this podcast. Very, very important issues coming out of here with learning. My name is Patrick Chilufia. I'm based in the UK. State Counsel Sangwa, I've got only few questions. And one of the questions is on delimitation. A lot of Zambians, I don't think they are under delimitation. America and the UK, just America, they've been doing the delimitation exercise for 57 years now. They do it every 10 years. So all they do is just to realign the boundaries of the constituencies. They've never increased the number of members of of the House since 1957, but they do delimitation every 10 years. So what necessitated Zambia to say delimitation is to increase constituencies? That's the first question. The second question, Sangwa, devolution is there in our constitution, but it hasn't been actualized. Here in the UK, schools are run by the councils. Elections are done at local council level. And the councillors, not MPs, are not involved in development. It's the council, it's the political party that wins the council, more councillors in that area, that runs that district or area. When are we going to do that in Zambia? Because it's there in the constitution. Who is going to do it? And then the last question, Ramwamba. Zambia, in terms of democracy and democratic institutions, I think we're amongst the best in the world. We've got so many institutions. And one of the institutions that a lot of Zambians don't know, if you remember the case of Jacob Zuma in South Africa, the ones that took Jacob Zuma to task, the Office of the Public Protector. We've got the Office of the Public Protector. For example, the issue of Mopani, somebody could have picked it up and take it to the Public Protector and say, the President, this is me, this is my administration. But that office, nobody knows about it. What do they do? Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, Patrick Chilufya from the United Kingdom. Let me just take another call. Maybe we take 3 state councils so that then you can answer. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
I would like to remain anonymous, please, if that's okay.
That's okay. Please speak louder.
Thank you. Is that better now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, State Council. Thank you very much for your contribution. We're always learning when you add your voice to national interest, national issues. I have a contribution. I wouldn't comment so much on the amendment of the Constitution. I'm here to learn because that is not my area of expertise, so I wouldn't really argue that much. But considering some of the issues concerning the amendment of the Constitution, I'm more interested in the campaign funds that should be advocated more, because this is what we have seen that is hurting our country. From history, we can tell that many of the parties that have ended up in forming governments, we have seen that they have gotten some money from some funders, but then the country has not been informed. We don't know the conditionalities of the monies that have been used by the funders. So what conditionalities have these people, that the parties that have borrowed, what is at stake? Do we continue pawning our country? When are we going to say Zambia first? We have seen and heard from Donald Trump in the US where he's saying the US first. When are we going to put our country first? Because I believe if we go into 2026 without making this clear, seeing it for the country and not the party to win, but let's look at it from the country's point of view. When are we going to continue growing? Yes, we have taken off, but the pace is very, very slow. And we know from experience that where we get our monies, they come immediately from government and they start asking for their profits. But what is it in for Zambia, right? That's the first one. And then you commented on the constituencies and you have mentioned Kanyama. I'm very much interested in Lusaka as a catchment area. One can argue to say Lusaka is developed. Lusaka is central. Why don't we use other constituencies? Why don't we go geographical, where we start looking at constituencies? We have one size fits all. budget when it comes to CDF that we are always looking at. Now, wouldn't it be right that when we argue for the delimitation, that we have gotten some study that has shown us to say out of the 30 million that was given the budget for 2023, we have seen a constituency with very few citizens, and this is how effective they have been by being small. Why don't we do that? And my last contribution or question is, would you be interested to run for office next year? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's see if we can get a third call so that we can now hand over to State Council. Let's see if we can get a third call. Council, maybe take up those two with the callers will wait.
About delimitation. I mean, this whole thing didn't just make sense. Why you'd want to introduce 50 more constituencies? It just didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense now. It didn't make sense then. Like I've said before, delimitation has nothing to do with creating new constituencies. It has everything to do with reorganizing the boundaries of the constituencies. I explained that constituencies do grow. You can't move people, but what you can do, you can alter the boundaries so that where there's been less population growth, you move more people so that they fall in that constituency with less. It is all about ensuring that MPs effectively represent their members. Now, for a member of Kanyama and these other Matero, I feel sorry for these MPs because they have an impossible task. Okay, these are the issues we should be talking about. We need to reorganize. We are not calling for an increase. I'm not calling for an increase in the number of constituencies. They're already 156. But I do believe that certain provinces should have more constituencies than others. Currently, I do believe that Lusaka should have more constituencies because it has the highest number of people. It is a far more complex area than any of these rural provinces and so forth. So it is important to do that. It is important to understand that delimitation has nothing to do with creating new constituencies, but it has everything to do with adjustments of boundaries to make sure that the number of people to be represented by MPs is evenly distributed in the country. That is what it is. This is what it is. Now, the other point we're talking about, which Mr. Chilufya raised, about devolution, the Investigator General, political funding, and so forth. These are the issues we should be talking about, not amending the Constitution. Because what is clear is the fact that although we have a Constitution, some of its provisions are not known, and some that are known have never been given life. And that is what we should be talking about. That's what should be our focus. We need to accept that the constitutional issue is settled, and that it was settled in 2016. And our job right now is simply to ensure that the Constitution as settled operates effectively. We should be calling for funding, for regulation of political funding, because when you don't control the funding to political parties, what is going to happen is that there is no free lunch. Whoever funds the political party that ultimately wins election, that person funding has basically made an investment. And when the people are elected, they're in the office, he has to find a way to recoup that money. So when you have too much money coming in whose source is unknown, it has a potential of distorting the quality of the election as to what extent it is free and fair. So it is important. So my plea to civil society is that let's start campaigning about the for this government before the election to enact the act regulating political funding. I've seen the draft that was initiated by the PF government in 2017. It is a beautiful piece of legislation. For example, it creates for the registration of political parties. It creates for alliances between political parties. There's a clear roadmap, legal framework laid out for creating alliances. There is also other provisions dealing with merger of political parties, dissolution of political parties, and so forth. And then most importantly, it provides for audit of political parties. So if you're talking about, first of all, it prohibits foreign funding of foreigners to fund our political parties. So there is that prohibition. And that is designed to protect the integrity of our election. So my plea to Law Association of Zambia, to civil society, these are the issues we should be talking about to make sure that the Office of the Investigator General operates as it should, and also this concept of devolution is implemented as it is set out in the Constitution. And we have to make sure, forget about the amendment, please. I beg you, forget about the amendment of the Constitution. Let's focus on determining the extent to which the constitutional provisions of institutions created by the Constitution are actually operating in reality. That is what should be the focus of this country, not amending the Constitution. For example, you're talking about the Office of Investigator General. It is there, but rightly so, nobody hears about it. Nobody hears about it. What is happening? Why is it that we don't hear about it? Why is it that why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? Those are the issues we should be talking about. CDF is a problem. CDF is a problem. In fact, the jury is still out on CDF. Obviously, if a constituency has 28,000, they receive 1.5 million. Kanyama with 50 million, 500,000 receives the same amount. It doesn't require a genius to know that CDF in Kanyama is a drop in the ocean. Okay? So these are the issues we should be talking about. We must accept the Constitution. Forget amendment. Look at it now. Let's now focus on seeing to what extent it is our Constitution is operating in reality. Not to continue all the time to talk about amendment. Amendments are distractions. We should focus on the real issues that affect an average Zambian. Oh yeah, interested in running for office. Okay, that's a topic for another day, Ambassador.
All right, allow us to pick a few calls over here. Good evening. Good evening.
Yes, good evening, yes.
Good evening. You're through to the program. Your names, please.
This is Senior Citizen. I'm from Mangala.
You can go ahead, Senior Citizen.
Yes, good evening, State Council.
Good evening, sir.
Presiding over the program. Mine is just a question. I'm glad that you have described the bill as dead. Now, when I look at government, UPND, they are trying to bring this bill we have described as dead back in different forms. What should be our reaction as Zambians if they bring it back, if they want to bring the bill back? And yet we know that you have stated clearly that the bill is dead. So if they want to bring it back, what should be the reaction of Zambia? Finally, when do you think should be the best time to go on the process of enacting a constitution? Though you are saying that there is no, I'm a bit confused. Shall we say that there should be no process of the constitution anymore? There must not be any until after general election.
Thank you so much, Senior Citizen. 0770813728 is the number that you're using for direct calls, and for WhatsApp live calls you're using 0973078082. That is Ambassador Mwamba's line. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Your names and where you're calling us from?
Yeah, this is Hambulo in Lusaka. Good evening, State Council.
Evening.
Your names again?
Hambulo in Lusaka. Hambulo.
Yes, Mr. Hambulo.
Yes. My question is, if deferment doesn't mean that since the Constitutional Court has ruled that this bill is illegal, is unconstitutional. So, according to the President, said he has deferred it. So, is he going to respect the will of the court, or is going to ignore? Then, number two, what is the take on the Speaker of the National Assembly with regard to what has happened today? Who decides who chooses the leader of opposition? Is it the ruling party or the opposition? And in that regard, what course of action can members of the Patriotic Front can take in that regard? Then my third question, you said there is no lacuna in the Constitution, and I've heard the President saying, no, there's a lacuna, it has to be cured. But according to your explanation, a lacuna is something that is missing. But to look at our Constitution, all the pages are there. So where is this lacuna coming from? Is the President being misled or what? Then number three.
That was your third question, Mr. Hambulo.
Okay, in conclusion, number three, because I think the Constitutional Court has ruled that the bill is unconstitutional. Should the President, should the Attorney General, and the Minister of Justice resign on moral ground or what? Good evening, God bless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hambulo. We'll take one more call, then State Counsel John Sangwa will respond. 0770813728 is the number that you're using for direct calls, and on WhatsApp you're using the number 0973078082. That is Ambassador Mamba's line on WhatsApp. You can come through in the number that is on your screen. But as we wait for a few more calls, State Counsel, I'll let you respond.
Yeah. You know, the bill is dead. You see, we have to look at the timing. When the President said the bill is deferred, this was before the judgment of the Constitutional Court came out. Now, what does it mean to be deferred? It simply means that the National Assembly is not going to consider it, but it has 6 months within which it could consider. But if it doesn't do so, after 6 months, the bill will lapse. It can either withdraw it or allow it to expire after 6 months, meaning it is still alive. Okay, but the Constitutional Court has now come up and said that process that you cited, which you started, which resulted in Bill 10, is null and void. Okay, so to that extent, whatever has been done which resulted in the bill is nothing, amounts to nothing. Okay, they can keep it there, they can do whatever it is, but as far as the courts are concerned, as far as we are concerned, that particular instrument cannot even be described as a bill. It's not a bill. It is basically, it has no, you can't even give it a name, because the whole process, it is as though, like I said, it is as though the process never even took place. It is illegal right from the beginning. That is the implication. Now, the other question was, is the President defying the decision of the court? We have to wait. What are they going to do? If it is, again, they ignore that. Ignoring it means going ahead with it and trying to pass it. Now, if they do that, there's only one option left, to go back to court and say, court, these people have disobeyed your order. And the court has a system, a mechanism in which to address people that where there's been non-compliance with its decision. So there are mechanisms that are in place. Now, Lacuna, I've already explained, there are no gaps, okay? And the other point, of course, that the other listener asked, are you saying we shouldn't touch there should be no amendment? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Focus on the economy, focus on the issues that really affect the welfare of the people. Okay, we have far bigger problems. One of them on top of the list is the economy. And there is nothing wrong unless you can point out, unless you people can come up with a position to say the Constitution, unless you can identify the defects or the problems in the Constitution. But again, if there is that problem, if you can identify what you believe are shortcomings in the Constitution, it doesn't mean you have to amend. You go to court, let the court confirm that your view, your understanding of the problem is in fact correct, and you go to court, the court can clarify. Just like we have this good judgment, okay? The court has clarified, it has cleared the position. That is progress. You don't amend the Constitution every time. If I may just repeat this, the Constitution is the foundation of the country, okay? Those that have built houses, they don't change or they don't knock at the foundation of their homes every now and then. They don't. The only time they look at the foundation is if they see cracks on the foundation. Similarly, you can't touch the Constitution unless you can point out to say there are some shortcomings, there are some cracks that have appeared. Otherwise, you shouldn't you shouldn't touch the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. There's also another question by Mr. Hambulo talking about who is in charge of appointing the leader of opposition in Parliament.
Yes. That's the job of the opposition, the main opposition party, okay? And it's a very simple thing. I mean, these are just acts of lawlessness, really. Whatever is happening in the National Assembly is complete lawlessness because the Constitution is very clear. And we've been through this process. You know, that's why it's so tiring talking about the same thing. We went through the same process and everything else. And also remember, the Speaker cannot take sides in the debate. The Speaker is an umpire, okay? He's like a moderator in the National Assembly. And the language coming from the National Assembly is totally unacceptable. That's not the role of the Speaker. Okay, the Speaker should not favor one side or the other. But the Constitution is very clear. It is the responsibility of the main opposition party in the National Assembly to come up with a name of leader of the opposition. It's very clear. These are things that we've been through. Now, again, we're going through them again. I think it's 2 years later, we're still talking about the same thing. We have to make progress.
Right. Let me pick another call, then we bring Ambassador on. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. This is Mr. MK calling from Congo, Western Province.
Mr. MK, you can go on with your contribution or question.
Yes, I have two questions.
Yes, please.
The first question is, if the court has ruled something as unconstitutional, how does the executive ensure that continuing to support or push the same bill does not amount to contempt of court? Yeah, and then the second question is, what message does the government's interpretation of deferment to send to the Zambian public about the supremacy of the Constitution and the independence of the judiciary? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. MK. We'll take another call, then we bring Ambassador on as well. We see if we can pick us a few more calls from his end. The number is 0770813728 for direct calls, and for WhatsApp calls we have 0973078082. That is Ambassador Mwamba's line. Good evening.
Good evening, my sister. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Your names and where you're calling us from?
This is Mkosa. John Sangwa, good evening.
Evening, sir.
Yes, I want to agree with you when you say it is tiring to listen to be saying same things over and over. Even to listen to same people over and over. It is tiring sometimes. We need to have new people on board to be talking about this issue. That's why we are not moving forward. You are the same people that told us that Edgar Lungu was not eligible. May his soul rest in peace. But immediately the judgment was passed, you changed the goalpost. Even here, you have been on this forum for almost an hour. You have not talked about how we can include these people that are the marginalized people like women, youths, and other people that are not fully participating in our governance system. Or what you are saying is that we need to withdraw, or we need to stop this bill. You are not telling us how we are going to improve these issues. Even how we are going to do the delimitation minus coming up with new constitutions. You are not telling us. The problem we have as a country, we always want to talk about symptoms instead of talking about real issues. Because we have been using the same people, listening to the same people over and over, the same people that have failed us.
Mr. Mkosa, will ask you to wind up.
I'm winding up right now. Can you imagine, just because someone is against Bill 7, is asked if he is being asked if he is going to stand as a president? This is the country that we are living in. Can you imagine? So for me, my brother, I see nothing about this bill. Maybe the process, that's why the president has decided to defer it, so that he can allow you to come in to bring in your views. But again, instead of doing that, you are busy attacking and saying, let us stop, let us stop.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mukosa, for coming through.
You're welcome, you're welcome.
Right, we cross over to Ambassador and see if we can get a few more calls.
Council, you're ambushed by Mr. Mukosa. He's a regular caller here. He's from the UPND. Do not get rattled. Hello, good evening. Please tell us your call and where you are calling us from.
Stanislas.
Yeah, Stanislas, speak louder. Where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Mundola.
From Mundola. Make your contributions.
Yes, that's a question. I've got 3 questions. Who is supposed to protect the constitution of Zambia? And who should protect the people of Zambia? My third question is, who is supposed to protect the parastatal companies? Like what is happening in Mopani? It's a very sad story. The thing is passing it through parliament, and as in Copper Belt we are starving. And other thing on this constitution, they want to make to change this Bill 7. If a member of parliament right now is failing to work or to provide to sustain him, how are they going to sustain other MPs if they increase the number? What is happening in Ndola, I'm telling you, is something you can, and people are living in fear. They can't complain anymore. Who's supposed to protect this?
Okay, I think your questions are very clear. Who protect the constitution, who protect the people, and who protect state-owned enterprises. State Council, let me just take a few more because there's such a long queue. Hello, good evening. Please tell them and where you are calling us from. Good evening. Please speak louder. From the United States. Please speak louder. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. State Council, I've been one of the good followers of you for quite some time now. And one thing that
My brother, you are away from the phone. You are very faint. Put your phone on your mouthpiece and speak.
Sorry, I was in headsets. How's my quality right now?
That's better.
Thank you so much. So, I was saying, I've been to State Council. I've been quite a good follower of you, and I've listened to quite a lot of your points. However, there's something that has been bothering me that I would want you to shed light on. You're saying there is no lacuna in the Constitution now. The Constitution is perfectly fine. We need to move away from it and focus on the economy. But like a previous caller said, already the Constitutional Court ruled that there is no need, and the process that was used to want to introduce Bill 10 is an illegal process. And then we've said it's now and void. But then the question, like my previous caller, is that if the executive pushes for that, don't you think it's an abuse of authority that has been going on? And that abuse of authority is coming because the president has just got so much power. Don't you think a constitution needs to be amended in such a way that we leave judges to find a way in which judges can appoint themselves and the president can swear them in? Because the state of the current affairs right now is that the president appoints these judges, and now in an event where there is a problem, how do you expect the judges to take back, jail someone that the president himself appointed? Going against your word.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. I think he's talking about powers of the president. Next caller, please quickly tell us your name and where you are calling us from. Hello, please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Hello?
Hello, please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, okay. This is MK6 from Joburg.
MK6, make your contributions or your question to State Council.
Okay, but I'm sure much of the questions have been taken over by events, and so I would just want to know from State Council. We have seen the PF with dragging each other in the courts of law, and we are seeing no end of those cases or cases coming to an end on time. Looking at the time that we are in, we are almost close about to 9 months at most to the elections. So do we have a time frame in the courts of law that any case should be determined? Secondly, we have seen court orders barring especially Chavinga, and that court order hasn't been respected. Are we seeing a break in the law that maybe some are free to do whatever they want and do not follow the court orders? What does the court order mean? Thirdly, on the cyber law, cyber crimes and cyber law, State Council, we saw only on the American Embassy page, when they informed their members, that's when we knew that the cyber and crimes and cyber law was signed in the dark without even much of the opposition MPs knowing about it. Some just lent it through the American Embassy page. Are we seeing this repeating itself with the Bill 7? If you saw, I think another caller asked the same question. If you saw, what should we do to the president, especially after this court ruling that Concord ruling that came out, I think 2-3 days ago? Lastly, again, as State Council, you haven't answered if you have ambitions for 2026. I'm keeping my voter's card for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, caller. You'll be the last one from me before I hand over to Lovisa. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Hello?
Yes, please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Okay, my name is Roy Chamatsulo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling from Lusaka.
Yes, Roy, make your contributions or your question to State Council.
Yes. I have a contribution and an encouragement. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you for having me, for giving me this opportunity. I have 3 items, not just for State Council, but for the whole country, for our people. In this country, we have so many views and we have so many things, so many perceptions about life and all that kind of thing. But my emphasis today is to talk about boundaries, like State Council was saying. In this country, we need to understand boundaries and structures. In life, you need to have boundaries and structures. Boundaries speaks of the same constitution State Council is talking about. We need to understand what are boundaries, what are structures. Boundaries speaks of principles. They speak of foundations. When you look at a tarmac has got boundaries. What are those boundaries? They speak of disciplines. They speak of principles. Now, without boundaries, you cannot have structures. And without structures, there is nothing that can integrate. What am I talking about? When you look at our country, we have these institutions, right? We have the boundaries, we have the structures. The boundaries brings about the structures. Now, when we violate the boundaries, which is the discipline, which is the principles of life, the rule of law, those are the boundaries that State Council is trying to talk about. If you discern it and understand it from the bigger picture, I understood it from from the way he was trying to explain that, you know what, as a country, we need to really go back to the basics. As a nation, let's go back to the basics. Let's understand that boundaries are very important because they bring about structures, infrastructures, all kinds of structures.
Okay, Mr. Chisulo, thank you. I think you have made your point. Thank you very much. You're talking about delimitation. Council, there are so many calls, but we may not accommodate them, especially that we are live on national television. But maybe we can take another set of questions when we are outside the live broadcast, where we are just live on Millennium Facebook and our pages. It's easier than on television, but Lovisa can guide. Lovisa, back to you.
Yes, I mean, some of them I couldn't get them correctly. But I think the most important thing is this, which I think people need to understand. You know, we are the only country in the region that has had so many constitutions made since independence. Other countries, for example, Malawi settled its constitution in 1991. They are done, they have moved on. South Africa has moved on, Zimbabwe has moved on, and so forth. We are still the ones talking about the Constitution every now and then. You know, it reminds me of somebody who graduates, and then instead of going to look for a job, he decides to go and do another degree. No, at some point you have to go out and get a job. Similarly, we need to reach a stage where we stop amending constitutions and allow the constitution to breathe so that we test this constitution. Now, people must understand the constitution is not the answer to everything. Every small problem you have, you want to amend the constitution. That's not the purpose of the constitution. Now, before you amend the constitution, the fundamental question that you have to ask yourself, what am I trying to address? If there is no problem with the Constitution, why change something or try to change something which is working perfectly? Now, even if you see the problem to do whatever problem exists in the country, before you touch the Constitution, you need to ask yourself, is there another way of addressing that problem? There are many ways. You may have to pass an act of parliament, okay? You may pass an act of parliament which can address those things, whatever concerns. People are talking about representation of women, representation of the youth, and so forth. Nothing stops the president. I mean, just to give you an example. For example, of the 8 nominated members of parliament, nothing stops the president from appointing youth or disabled or women using that 8 number. There is already a provision to that effect. When it comes to appointments in other ministries and so, there is already a legal requirement to say it must take into account gender, it has to be gender sensitive in these appointments. There are already safeguards there, and that is why before you can advocate for a change of the Constitution, the question is, have you read it? Do you understand what you're dealing with? First of all, the problem that you have identified, is it addressed in the Constitution? If it is not addressed in the Constitution, can it be addressed in any other way, through an act of parliament and so forth? But the problem is we try to think that, the Constitution is there to solve all our problems. No, it can't. There are certain problems that we have to sort out on our own. The Constitution has its role. It divides power. That's what it has done. It now makes sure that our job is to make sure that the powers that have been delegated to various organs of government and various constitutional office holders are exercised correctly. Okay? So to answer some of the questions, it is not a solution to everything. Before you change it, ask yourself, what is the problem? And if you identify the problem, the next question is amending the Constitution the only solution? If it is, then you go ahead. But right now, when you look at Bill 7, there is absolutely no justification. That's why the government, the administration struggled to justify the Bill 7. Now, these are things. So my plea is for all those concerns that, first of all, take time. How many people have read the Constitution? Okay, we need to read it first, understand it, before we can talk about whether it has performed or not performed. And also remember, we have bigger problems in this country. Our focus should not be on the Constitution, but on the economy and also creating unity.
Right. I know Ambassador wants us to continue on social media only, away from TV, but I'm being reminded that we've done almost 2 hours. We're almost at 2 hours now,
wow.
So Ambassador might have to reconsider his decision. In your speech at the last forum on Constitutional Reforms Council, you spoke about how Bill 7 privileges political insiders and entrenches inequality by making power more exclusive and less accountable. What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, there is this provision which they wanted to introduce, so that you see, when you have a general election, now to get rid of by-elections, if the seat is declared vacant, right now, if the seat is vacant, what it does is that we go for by-election. Now, the Bill 7 was trying to stop that, to say political parties should be able to appoint another person to step in. And we are saying, no, that's undemocratic, okay? Because a seat is not a property of the party, okay? It is the people that determine who should occupy that seat. Technically, when people vote, they don't vote for the party at the parliamentary level. They vote for the person that they have voted. That is how our system is. For example, I can choose to vote, give my vote to a PF presidential candidate and a UPND councillor or UPND member of parliament. Okay? So we vote for individuals. That is how our system is structured. So what they are trying to do is to change that. Once I've voted, say you are PF, and even if the party fires you, then PF will have the right to bring in my brother to replace you. But I'm saying, hey, I didn't vote for you. I voted for her, right? So that is what this Bill 7 was trying to do, was now trying to get a seat to be owned by the political party. And I was saying, that should not be the way a democratic system should work. Yes.
Right. But I think as we conclude, on my end, I don't know about Ambassador, but on my end, as we conclude, you spoke about giving your vote to President Hakainde Hichilema in 2021, and that you're not giving him your vote in 2026. What really made you give him your vote in 2026? Because I think most of the times that you've appeared on certain forums, you've been criticized a lot. Others have described you as a cadre of the Patriotic Front. I don't know what your position is on that, but what is it that made you turn and feel that you do not need to vote for the UPND going forward?
I'm a lawyer. I've taken oath to defend the Constitution. Okay, even friends, I've lost friends in defense of the Constitution. Okay, and I voted against PF because they wanted to amend. Because for me, it was Bill 10. That's why I didn't give them my vote. It's Bill 10. Okay, I have a problem with anybody playing around with the Constitution because I've taken oath, and that is the foundation of our country. It is something that we must treasure as a people. Okay, a constitution is not just a piece of document that you just play around with as and when you feel like. It is a sacred document. Okay, let me try, not exact parallels, but you know, the Constitution is what to us as a country is what the Bible is to Christians. Okay, the Bible is the foundation of the Christian faith, right? The Constitution is a foundation of who we are as a people. It is what defines what Zambia is. Okay? So the moment a person starts tinkering with the Constitution, that person has lost my vote. Okay, so PF didn't get my vote last year because of Bill 10. And this time I'm also saying I don't have respect for anybody who violates the Constitution. I have a problem with that. It's a matter of principle for me. Maybe for others it's okay, but for me it's not okay. Okay, so that's why I'm saying when a person is elected president, he takes oath, okay, to defend and protect the Constitution. He doesn't take oath to say I'm going to amend the Constitution. No, he has to defend it. But once he departs from that, then I have a problem with that. And as a people, we need to understand that there are countries where constitutions mean nothing. We have to avoid getting to that level. Once you get to that level as a country, you never come back. You never come back. So the Constitution simply becomes a sham. What is happening, what the Constitution says is one thing, and what is happening is another thing. We don't want to get there. That is why my spirit was, I felt I was quite elated by this judgment of the Constitutional Court.
The UPND government not moved in to amend the Constitution, would you have given them your vote?
You see, there are a number of shortcomings also, okay? One of the other things that I've talked about is that this country is more divided than ever before, okay? For me, that's a failure. And two, the economy is struggling. Guys, this country is in trouble. It's in trouble. Not these things that we're being told about, these fake numbers thrown around. The country is in trouble. That is what we should be focusing on, not amending the Constitution. So there are a number of factors that you would. Because you see, when you are given a 5-year mandate, okay, come next day, it's a time for review. You have your scorecard. How well did you do on the promises that you made? Okay? But for me, breach of the Constitution is something I don't compromise on. I don't compromise on that. Okay? Maybe we can debate on these other things, but not on the Constitution.
Right. Let me go back to Ambassador Mamba as he also concludes with the program. Ambassador, I would also like to remind you that we've done 2 hours, and I can see that State Counsel John Sangwa here looks tired.
It's time to wind up. You know, with Mr. Sangwa, you can be with him for a long time. Let me just do a brief recap. And I still have a lot of course coming in, but I think we don't have time to take them in. We have to allow you, Council, to rest and to allow Lovisa and your team, you know, to go. But essentially, you've said Constitution is a sacred document. You've emphasized Bill 7 is dead, and you compared it to Bill 10, that the difference is the same. Same challenges and same difficulties. Then you highlighted what the priorities should be for the country. And you've emphasized that the Constitution is not one of them. And because this Constitution is not even fully tested, you gave an example of a car, you know, or a truck with 10 wheels, and it only, you really can't tell how good that vehicle is until you test it in the parameters that it was designed. You've welcomed the Concord judgment. I think it's historical, it's landmark. I think it caught us, all of us, by surprise, and the directives it's given, I think, will inform future constitutional making process. You've stated even just now that to you, the Constitution is something you can't compromise on. It has even directed your views about political parties. You're saying you didn't vote for the PF. That's how sacred it is. You compared it to the Bible. And that when, in the case like President Hakainde Hichilema has violated the Constitution, you've exasperated there that there's nothing we can do because we need then to impeach him. But if we are to impeach him, do we have the numbers in Parliament? The answer is probably no. And you have emphasized, like on the issue of the state of the economy and how bad it is, another limb you keep on emphasizing is the divisions that have emerged, the rupture that is occurring to the fabric of our unity. So, State Council, I'll let you, my callers still want to speak to you, but we'll let you make your last remarks, and then we call it a wrap for today. And thank you for according us an opportunity and we apologize. You were supposed to come on yesterday. You couldn't. It wasn't your fault. It was our fault, our technical fault, because we had two entities coming together. So please give us your last remarks, and we call it a wrap.
I always remind people that, God loves this country. We mess up in a way, but we still manage to find a way to redeem ourselves. And we have institutions that work. In the case of Bill 10, the courts failed, but the Constitution was protected by the National Assembly because the PF did not have the numbers. This time around, it looks like UPND has the numbers in the National Assembly, but the court came to rescue and protect the Constitution. Now, these are things we have to celebrate, but we don't need to take them for granted. Okay, it is very, very important for us to remember that. And that what I'd also like us all, I'm appealing to my friends in the Civil Society Law Association of Zambia to accept the fact that we do not need to amend the Constitution. We do not need to start a new Constitution making process. Our focus should be, first of all, to examine the Constitution and determine whether it is complete, whether all the institutions that are created by the Constitution have actually been created. And if they have been created, how well are they working? That should be our focus, not amending the Constitution. It should be something that should be done very, very rarely. And there has to be compelling reasons. And the Constitutional Court has now guided on how the process has to be initiated. Any amendment to the Constitution must be demanded by the people. The people must initiate. And if it is the executive must make a case to the people, convince the people why the Constitution needs to be amended before formulating the bill. I think we are in a good place. Let us now shift our attention to the real pressing issues. For me, what scares me the most is not the Constitution, it's the state of our economy, the levels of poverty that is going on, and that is there. And also, I do not see how we can survive given the poor state of our economy and the increase in the populations that we have. These are the real issues, and I'd like to believe that the responsibility to develop this country, to change this country, it is our collective responsibility. Nobody else will come from anywhere to come and sort out our problems. These are Zambian problems, and it is for Zambians to sort out. It is actually a shame that after 60 years of independence, we have trashed everything that we inherited from the British government at the time of independence. We need to restore that. That should be our focus. That let's stop playing politics. Let's focus on the real issue, which is the economy. And at the end of the day, we shouldn't just have this habit of just throwing around numbers. We must have targets as to how we can get from point A to point B. For me, that is the most critical part. And there is poverty. Our people are struggling. The Constitution is good, but they will not eat the Constitution. Let's focus on what is truly and more what is truly important. Okay, because people will not discuss the Constitution on an empty stomach. They need to eat first. So our focus now, not that the Constitution, I would like to believe that the Constitution is settled. First of all, we need to have the Constitution reprinted as a complete document, which has not happened yet. I don't know whether with the revision of the laws, whether that has been done. And make sure we give each Zambian a copy of the Constitution so that they understand this. Because each Zambian has a duty to have a basic understanding of your Constitution. That is very, very important. The Constitution is there to guide you, but to protect you. But you will not receive the benefits of the Constitution if you don't know what the benefits are, if you have not read that particular document. Those would be my concluding remarks. Thank you very much.
Council, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you this evening. On behalf of Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, thank you so much for according us this opportunity to speak to you. And this is where we come to the end of our discussion. Thank you so much to everyone that tuned in. We were featuring Constitutional Lawyer John Sangwa on today's special interview where I was host. My name is Loviso Chilufia, and of course Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba was my co-host all the way from wherever he is. We'll just cross over to Ambassador. Maybe he also says his buys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, do stay tuned to Millennium TV and Ambassador Mwamba's page as well.
You can continue or remain for the next 15-20 minutes live on our pages just to take your calls. And maybe you'll be lucky that on the other side, State Council will be there, but will allow the Millennium TV team to leave us. And thank you very much to your management, Millennium TV, and to your audience, and to all our callers. Thank you very much for all the calls. And to State Council, we are grateful, eternally grateful that you allowed us in your private home, in your private sanctuary, to take this interview. We think it was very important for our country. So to the other audience, goodbye, and we'll see you. To all those that are on social media, let's continue. I already have one caller who you can now participate live on our social media. Millennium TV will leave us. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.